So here's the sitch on the ATL box score. We first get into the Falcons' Valentine's Day cards that they gave to every team in the NFL and more. And then we talk about Kirby Smart going out of state to get that number 2 recruiting class in the nation. And then we have the quarterback whisperer on himself, Mr. Sean McAvoy, talking about quarterbacks of all different sizes and ages, from college to the NFL, even the high school ranks. This is the ATL Box Score Podcast, Atlanta's newest sports podcast, and you're listening to Football Friday. With starting a new podcast, people ask me all the time, Alex, where do you record your show at? Do you do it at your house? No, I don't do it at my house because of just a lot of different logistical factors. The place that I do it at is actually a place called Spaces, Midtown East. And Spaces is a co-working center where I get my show recorded and I get other work done. Co-working has been one of these new phenomenons in the private business sector that has popped up recently. And Spaces also has another brand called Regis, which is more of a professional brand. Spaces is more for creators like myself. But to tell you more about these special brands in the business world is Mr. Steve Choi.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate those kind words. We absolutely love having you and ATL Box Score as part of our space. It's always great when we see you doing your work. But absolutely, Spaces and the Regis concept, we are both workplace providers here in the Atlanta area, but all around the world. We have over 250 Spaces locations worldwide, plus over 1,500 Regis locations. And what we're really here to do is just provide flexible options for any type of professional, whether you're an independent professional, creative, or if you're a large or small business. So we have several different types of options, from small to large, and memberships, part-time, full-time. So definitely come on out and check us out. Go ahead and look at the link on Alex's site and ask for Steve Choi. And if you ever come into one of our locations, let us know that Alex sent you, or ATL Box Score, and we'll go ahead and set you up with a free 5-day test drive.
Yeah, you can't beat that 5-day test drive. In those 5 days, you will know if Spaces or Regis is the right brand for you. And Spaces is all over the place. They're a little bit more limited, but they're in the main areas of the city. The one we are is right in the heart of Midtown, near the Fox Theater. There's one at the Battery. There's going to be one opening up North Point Mall there. And there's also a location in Colony Square. So they are all over the metro area. At just about any major business building in the Atlanta area has a Regis in it. So just Google them. But Spaces and Regis and Steve Choi in particular is your place to do your business. A part of me really feels glad that we've made it to Friday. This week's gone by pretty fast, but especially being a single man and knowing what day yesterday was. I don't have anything against Valentine's Day, and I'm not one of those guys who thinks it's a scam or whatnot. I mean, kind of is in a way, but at the same time, I'm not going to be prideful enough and not give my significant other. I'm single, by the way, just to put that out there. Steve's laughing about this when I'm saying this because I don't know if I'm digging my own grave or what. But I would take care of that certain person no matter how I felt about that holiday. We're all consumers in our own ways, and that's what living in America has taught us. So I'll just say this: happy day after Valentine's Day. I hope that your significant other took care of you in more ways than one. I'm just gonna put it like that. And yeah, thank God that it's the day after, and it is Football Friday, which we get to talk about here on the podcast, talking about all things football. But before we get into all things football, pitchers and catchers have reported down in Orlando, Florida, down at the ESPN Sports World complex on Twitter. The Atlanta Braves put some guy. They had some pictures of some guys throwing and catching. So baseball season is going to be faster than you think. And if you didn't see our last podcast, we're doing a new segment called Atlanta Braves Profiles, Players and Playas. I had fun with it. We had a lot of fun doing it the last time, me and Steve Choi. And actually, Steve is with me in this segment. How are you doing, buddy? You looking forward to NBA weekend? Because your guy, Steve Kerr, I mean, he's not going to get ejected this weekend at all.
I'm having a great time. And, yeah, I love seeing that fire from Steve Kerr. He's such a laid-back coach. And when you see him get fired up, it's like, all right, everybody's getting ready for the postseason, buddy.
He's a classic shepherd. You know that?
A shepherd.
That's a good way to describe him.
Okay.
Shepherds back in the day were pretty laid back, but if you messed with one of their sheep,
okay, yeah,
then you got the horns.
I like it.
You like it?
Yeah. It's been a good week.
Yeah.
I didn't have I didn't have anything much to do last night myself, but I made it work.
We're on Monday. I need a full report from you.
Okay.
Because I know the Choi household's throwing down for some Daytona 500.
That's right. Rum.
Say it again.
Rum.
That's how we're going to start off Monday with.
Nice. Daytona.
So yeah, want to get your thoughts on Daytona.
Should be fun. Last night actually was the duels. So Daytona, they have what is called everything leading up to the actual 500 race is called Speed Week, and there's several different types of exhibition and qualifying races. So last night was 2 races to qualify to for every position in the field except for the starting front row.
Nice.
So it's pretty fun.
Nice.
It's always exciting because it's NASCAR is interesting where their Super Bowl is at the beginning of the year.
Well, it's kind of like golf. Like you have the Masters
right
at the beginning of the PGA Tour.
But it's
season.
Is that right? So there's no other tournaments, but there's some tournaments leading up to the Masters, right?
But there's kind of some.
It's just there's no big tournaments.
There's no big tournaments.
Yeah. For NASCAR, this is literally race number 1.
Right. This is kickoff.
Yeah. So yeah.
But you have some races that really don't matter in the grand scheme of things, and that's kind of like with golf. Like you have some tournaments that really don't matter.
Yeah, that's arguable.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, buddy.
So
spring training is coming. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. So with that, in case you wondered what you're listening to, this is the ATL Box Score. This is Atlanta's newest sports podcast. So if you are taking a break from sports talk radio, or you're trying to find something different, well, you're in the right place because we try to, as much as possible, imitate sports talk radio, but at the same time give you a little bit more kick. So like I said, this is the ATL Box Score podcast with Alex Berger, and I'm Alex Berger, and this is Football Friday. And if you don't know what Football Friday is, we have different names that we call different shows, kind of like how Pete Carroll, when he was at USC, I don't know if he's doing this with the Seahawks, but he had different names for practices, so we have different names for shows. And to start off the football talk, we talked a little Brave spring training and NBA All-Star this game is this week. Are you looking forward to, before we start the football talk, are you looking forward to All-Star Weekend at all? I know it's the celebrity game tonight.
Yeah, of course. All-Star Weekend is super cool, too.
It's actually in the city that I was born in.
Yeah, I hear that. I'm really surprised.
Charlotte's turned up, though, since I lived there.
Nice.
I went back there a couple years ago, and I'm just like, dang, like,
yeah,
this is a cool place. This is a cool place to be. So, but like I said, to start off the football talk, because I didn't really know how to start this show off, I just have one of those days at work, where you just don't feel like getting anything done.
Trust me, I know.
So
it's like every day.
Right, but then it's like show day comes around, and all of a sudden I get inspired, and I feel like I got the right thing to start off the show with. And the Atlanta Falcons, with Dan Quinn, is starting to be a very classic organization. I think they've always been, with Arthur Blank at the helm. But Dan Quinn brought in the brotherhood and everything like that, and now I feel like they're bringing in the swag and the just the suave, you could say.
Yeah.
Because they did a very, very cute and classic thing, and I don't think a lot of NFL organizations did this. I saw someone NFL memes on Facebook did different Valentine's Day cards. Like you had John Gruden say, "I'll never trade you," and just sarcastic things. But this was a little bit more sincere. The Atlanta Falcons gave a Valentine's Day card to digital Valentine's Day card to all the NFL teams. For your team, Steve, to the Niners, the Valentine's Day card they said was to the 49ers. On a scale of 1 to 10, you're a 49.
That's pretty awesome, man. That's pretty awesome.
And let me just kind of go through a couple of these, because definitely check this out. This is on the Atlanta Falcons Twitter, but at the same time, check out ATL Box Score Twitter. This is a good plug for the Twitter account, because this morning we actually retweeted and liked all of them. So they're on ATL Box Score Twitter, also on the Atlanta Falcons Twitter. But another one that I thought was really clever was to the Dallas Cowboys.
Uh-oh.
This is a little trolling, but you're a 5-star in our book.
5-star?
5-star, because they only do 1 star.
Right. I get it.
Another one where it's kind of cute, but kind of just like, I don't know if that was an insult or a compliment. I don't know. You know when you get one of those?
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah. So this was to the Chicago Bears. Congratulations on barely a good season.
Wow.
And it has a bear emoji on it.
Wow. I can think of a couple for Atlanta.
Well,
but go ahead.
Another one to the New York Jets. You're just barely plain awesome. There's a plane, and they have a plane emoji on there.
I get it.
But this isn't the good. Oh, for the Giants was creative. You're a one-handed catch with the winking emoji.
Aw.
You've helped me utilize the winking emoji over the past couple of months in more ways than one. And they even, you'd be surprised, but they even actually sent one to the Saints.
Oh.
They're big rivals.
What'd they say?
This is a great one. Roses are red, violets are blue. You don't like us, and we don't like you.
Oh.
But
Can I say what if I were the Saints? What I would tweet back?
yeah, what would you tweet back?
I would say to the Atlanta Falcons. Let's hope. Oh no! Let me start that over. So this is from the New Orleans Saints Valentine's card to Atlanta.
If they actually did that, but I don't think they're.
If they did it, they would say, Atlanta, here's to Falcon up your season.
That's actually creative. Yeah.
I love it.
That's actually creative and borderline like G-rated. So
yeah, why? That was if I was the Saints, but I ain't.
And you thought about that off the dome.
Off the dome.
Which is off the top of the head for people that don't understand that.
Off the Superdome. But anyways. Okay, we're getting corny now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, these are all corny. And then to even, like, add injury to insult, to pour that salt on the wound, they didn't talk about the Ravens game. But for the Panthers, which is another one of their rivals.
Right.
Not as big as the Saints.
They ain't been around long enough.
It's not even that, but it's like the Saints compete for high things the Atlanta Falcons want to have. That's why, to be totally honest, that's why that rivalry is what it is. Sure,
makes sense.
Because Atlanta's jealous in some ways. And I'm saying this from a Falcons.
Okay. Right. You said it, I didn't.
Well, I mean, team that won the Super Bowl, they always go pretty. When they have good teams, they always go pretty far in the playoffs.
You're right. Plus, they have Mardi Gras.
Right. Okay. I have a different opinion on that one, but that is coming up, by the way. To the Panthers. At least you're not from Louisiana.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Wow. They're really sticking it to them, aren't they?
They are.
Bitter much?
So this is a good comedical relief to Valentine's Day.
Especially after that season.
Yeah, especially being a single man too. So especially for me being a single man. But I found out too.
Single man.
I found out too. Atlanta is actually the best single city or best city for singles.
That's what they say
in the United States.
That's what they say.
I kind of.
Do you feel like that?
Yes and no sometimes.
Yeah.
Depending on what. It depends on what type of bar.
I want to know what that means. The best city for being single. Yeah. Like things cater to single people, or single people have fun here, or
maybe a little bit of both.
Sure.
I mean, just to me, my personal opinion, it depends on what side of the city you're on, and it depends on what bar you're at.
And then what you're drinking.
Yeah, what you're drinking, that you end up floating around.
Right. Because depending on that, it doesn't matter where you're at.
Right. Yeah, let's not get too carried away. But next, we're actually going to talk about Kirby Smart's recruiting class. Well, there's still been some hangover. It seems like recently, just kind of check in on content online from National Signing Day. And we actually covered National Signing Day pretty good. I wish we could have been on location. But we got Donovan James from recruitinggurus.com. That's his specialty. He's a writer on there. So check on our last podcast for Football Friday, and be sure to check out that podcast if you're interested to see how recruiting, just signing day went in general. But to kind of shift the focus back here to the home front, talking about the Georgia program that's 2 hours away from where we are. I was a little surprised, and I'm a guy that actually started out covering high school football here in the state of Georgia. And I was a little surprised to see how this signing class for Georgia shook out, because Kirby Smart is known for, since he got to Georgia, even when he was at Alabama, that he was known for getting the Georgia guys. But if we look at the recruiting class right now, that let me just list off the first three guys. You have Nolan Smith, who's from Bradenton, Florida. You have Clay Webb, who's from Oxford, Alabama. You have Nakeem Dent from Horn Lake, Mississippi. And you even have a kid in here that's right next to Nakeem Dent. And this is off of ESPN's ESPN's website with when they give you the signees for each class. So this is off of ESPN's rankings. But it's like for the first 4 guys are out of state. I mean, you have either another dude from Texas. And also too, if you go down, you have a lot of Florida guys. You have a guy from Baton Rouge. You have a guy from Rhode Island, which is really surprising. Do you know what state is MN? What initial?
That's Minnesota, buddy.
That's what I thought. I wasn't sure.
You're really up in arms about this.
Yeah, because I'm just surprised.
Okay.
I am.
Why?
Because one, Kirby Smart's known for recruiting guys in-state.
Okay.
Getting in-state talent.
Okay.
If you look at this class, 18 out of 20, they signed 23. 18 of those guys are from out of state.
Wow.
18 out of 23. In a state that Clemson highly recruits out of, Auburn tries to get a foothold in here. Clemson that won the national championship, if you look at their roster, I'm pretty sure half those guys are from the state of Georgia.
Gotcha.
Half, or I want to say probably 45% of that roster has to be from the state of Georgia. And there's a dude I listen to on YouTube called, on Twitter, he's known as the Underground King from Top Billing Sports. I don't really know his real name. Has some really interesting stuff on YouTube. So if you're a big Dogs fan, definitely check him out. He's a guy that knows what he's talking about. And I only try to follow people that know what they're talking about.
Okay.
When it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
But his opinion is that it's like, if Georgia would have stayed in state, that they would have got the number 1 recruiting class. Rivals had them at number 1. And I know maybe, I know that it's like, why am I being picky about this? Even though they got the number 2 recruiting class. And all these guys were highly recruited by other programs out of state. It makes me wonder, and I think Kirby's trying to do 2 things, I feel like. He's, one, trying to establish that he is a national recruiter.
Gotcha.
Mark Richt tried to do the same thing. And Mark Richt, I feel like, got bitten in the butt. And then you had other schools like Tennessee, Clemson, just get all the top talent out of the state.
Makes
and,
sense.
and he lost his foothold in the state of Georgia. I don't think Kirby Smart's necessarily going to do that at this point. At the same time, I feel like he's trying to show up Nick Saban because he got a guy in Clay Webb who was a highly recruited offensive lineman that Nick Saban wanted. And the guy's from Oxford, Alabama. You just don't go into that. You just don't go into Alabama and get a highly recruited Alabama prospect. That doesn't happen. And I think it's the same thing too with Ben Seiler, who is the tight end out of Clearwater, Florida. His choices were between Bama and Georgia, and he went Georgia's way. I'm pretty sure a lot of these other guys, like Nolan Smith, I'm looking at, it was between Alabama and Georgia. So I think between these Alabama-Georgia battles, Kirby Smart wanted to come out with the upper hand. I think another thing that's, I think that's the case right now. That he's trying to be a national recruiter, and he's trying to show Nick Saban, hey, I can get your guys too. That the dynasty you're building over in Tuscaloosa, it's closing down, and I'm beat you in your recruiting. I'm taking your legs right underneath you, like what Paul Johnson would do with that option system that he ran at Georgia Tech. Kirby Smart's trying to do the same thing, recruiting wise. Hey. He's trying to take Alabama's knees right underneath him in recruiting, and that's what you're gonna have to do to beat them on the field. I'm really curious. I'm going to look right now. Get over the hump sooner than later. But that's been my take on Kirby Smart's recruiting class for the class of 2019. Now we're going to have Sean McAvoy on the show, and he's going to take us the rest of the way out. This is a fun conversation me and Sean have. We talk about Bo Nix and the quarterback competition going on in Auburn. Also, too, he gives a case in point why Georgia is just has so much talent and is so talented. And also, too, we talk a little bit about Jared Goff. So this is my conversation with the quarterback whisperer himself. So joining right now the conversation on the ATL box score is Sean McAvoy. Since it's Football Friday here on the ATL box score, we thought it would be great to bring back Sean McAvoy on the show today. And Sean, if you haven't noticed here, if you're not following his Instagram, he is just blowing up the Instagram story part with his quarterback Q&A. He actually brought on a couple other quarterback coaches. So if you're interested in the private quarterback training world, definitely check out Sean McAvoy's Instagram, especially on Thursday. That's when he pretty much just blows up the Insta story. And yesterday he was rocking the classic Bears hat. Sean, how are you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing well, man. I appreciate the shout out there to my Instagram, man.
No, I mean I think it's really interesting what you got going on, and you're like one of the only coaches there that isn't like big and burly and doesn't have a beard.
Yeah, some of us have to look good when you're in front of the camera.
Exactly. Or you just always got it going on. You need to maintain that image. So I get the feeling from you.
That's fun.
So but yeah, let's just get right into it. Talking some football, and since everything's kind of winding down football-wise till spring, and because spring practice. The draft is going to be around the corner, but this is kind of like the dead period. But we still found some football content to talk about, and especially reading in the AJC this week, they're profiling a different player from the state of Georgia that played high school football in the state of Georgia. And to give you a little bit about Sean's background, Sean trains a lot of high school quarterbacks, and he was also a quarterback coach in Buford High School this past season. So Sean knows the GSHA, try to say that 5 times fast, landscape here in the state of Georgia. And Sean, yeah, I just want to get your impressions of what you think of that, because right now it's 25 guys that are invited to the combine this year, but I could see 5-6 years from now that it's like in the 30 range just because of all the talent that's in this state.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, something we've talked about really over the last 4 or 5 years, and we usually talk about it in terms of guys getting recruited to major colleges, right? And how many Division I prospects come out of high school each year and go to these big schools. And now you're seeing it continue to translate to the next level, right? And now you're seeing these guys that were those good prospects out of high school and went to college, not only got that opportunity, but clearly playing a high level, succeeding there to continue to move to the next level, which I think is the coolest part, right? There's a lot of talk about rankings and star ratings and things of that nature, and people are down on them sometimes because guys get 5-star ratings and they go to college and don't do anything. Right. So now is that player a bust, or maybe they just were overrated initially, right? So it's cool to see guys that have a lot of love coming at them as they leave high school, and then continuing to kind of succeed at the next level and give them the opportunity there in the NFL. But Georgia's been producing. I think we've talked about this before. It goes a lot to how great the high school programs are in this area.
We are joined with Sean McAvoy talking about the talent here in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, Alex, what it really comes down to is really just how great, especially per capita, that Georgia keeps producing this talent. So you look at the schools that are ranked ahead every year, from either guys coming out of high school to go to college, or in this case, guys that play high school here going to the NFL. The schools that are higher rated than Georgia are the Texas and the California and the Florida, and just these huge states, right? I mean, you're talking states like Texas and California that are, 3, 4, 5 times the size of Georgia. So the fact that Georgia's producing at such a high level for what's really one of the smaller states is what's super impressive. And I agree with you. I just think that continues to grow from here.
Right, and it's always, too, with, just at the high school level, that you always have these, surprise high schools that come out and are competing for state titles, like Rome, Roswell, was it Cartersville or Carrollton, where Trevor Lawrence came out of? I can't remember. Cartersville, yeah. Usually, you'll have surprise high schools that'll just be powerhouses for a few years, and then you see those guys translate over to the next level, like with the Roswell program, which is a program I covered. You have a guy like Trey Lamar, who went to Clemson, spent his 3 years, and now he's going to be one of the guys that's invited to the combine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's just the competition's so good at the high school level. So, and regardless of classification, right? We talk about this all the time. You talk about, a guy like Trevor Lawrence played 4A football. So when you have a state that goes up to 7A, then you think 4A, well, what competition is he playing against? How ready will he be? Well, obviously, we all know the answer about how prepared Trevor Lawrence was going to be when he got to college after playing 4A football in Georgia. That goes a lot to his personal development and the training that he did. But you're seeing, so at every classification, up and down, you go to single A and 2A football games in Georgia, and there's multiple Division I prospects out there on that field. And so when you are accustomed for 4 years of high school, 10 to 15 games a year playing against other highly rated D1 players, it certainly makes the transition now into college that much easier because you've played against this type of talent before. And now you're in a position to succeed and play at a high level there in college. And now it's providing a lot of these guys opportunities.
Yeah, I really do feel like of this like new kind of breed of Georgia players going to the NFL, I feel like Deshaun Watson is like the Moses of this this crop of talent that I think you're going to see for the next couple of years coming out of the state of Georgia.
It's similar to Florida, right? So for years, the reputation Florida had was just phenomenal athletes, right? Just all the wide receivers and DBs, all the guys that run, sub 4.4 40s and things of that nature. All the great athletes were from Florida, and you're seeing Georgia kind of hold their own in that category as well, right? Now, like some of the big linemen are coming up from the Midwest, and they're coming out of the Northeast and things of that nature. Texas has always had a really good mix of kind of all positions, but what you're seeing from Georgia is, of course, the quarterback surge, right? It seems like every year that, a way too large percentage that would make sense of the best quarterbacks coming out of high school are coming from the state of Georgia. And you're seeing these guys translate, and you're right, Deshaun Watson kind of leading that charge, and, obviously guys like Trevor Lawrence and them following. But yeah, it's just a great mix of the real good athletic, and what everybody wants to know is why is that, right? Like, why is Georgia or Florida producing these, like track star type athletes at a way higher level or percentage than, anywhere else in the country? And I think that's the thing nobody quite has an answer for yet, but it's certainly what you're seeing. So even if it is a quarterback, you're seeing these really, really athletic, quarterbacks coming out of this area. It's starting to change the college football landscape, no doubt. And I think you're going to see it more and more translate to the NFL.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The reason why I'm asking you this, too, for a lot of people that don't really know Sean has a Sean grew up in the Philadelphia area. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So, you're from that Pennsylvania area, so it's like you have no reason to be biased for the state of Georgia. And you told me one time on an offline conversation, I know it's this way in the state of Massachusetts, that it's like you're lucky to get like 5 guys in like an area that got Division I scholarships to go play, but it's like in the state of Georgia, I mean, depending on what area of the state are you going, you have going like 5 miles, and like you have like 20 guys getting D1 commits or getting D1 scholarships.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's so funny because that was the first question everybody asked. Like, okay, what do you think of Georgia football? Or, what is it like compared to Pennsylvania? Because when you look at, those big states again, we already named, California and Texas and Florida and Georgia, right? Those kind of the big 4. But then Ohio is right there, and Pennsylvania is right. Like, those are some of the top producing, states for talent. But the only way to compare it is, like you said, when I coached at the highest classification in Pennsylvania, we were a really good team, a playoff team every year I was there. We would have like maybe one Division I recruit like every other year. That was just what it was. Now I come down here and, this year at Buford, we have 18 guys go Division I, right? And to every big school you can name. So that's the difference. Like, there's no other way to compare it. Schools around this area like Grayson and like Hapeville Charter, which is a 2A program in Georgia, those guys are putting out double-digit Division I prospects every year. And I don't know that when I was up there in Pennsylvania, I can remember a school that had maybe more than 3 or 4 D1 guys go in the same year.
Wow. Well, with that, since we talked about how dominant the state of Georgia is, another guy that's transitioning to the next level that has got a lot of time on SportsCenter. If you've watched SportsCenter recently, you've obviously seen this guy. I just want to get your thoughts and opinions on Kyler Murray And how is he going to translate over into the NFL? I thought Baker Mayfield, like him being an NFL quarterback, I thought that was a huge leap forward just in a development standpoint. But he looks like this last year that he's worked out for the Browns for the most part. And Kyler Murray, I feel like, is just a different animal altogether, and obviously he doesn't have the size that you want a prototypical type of quarterback in the NFL that he has, but a little undersized, but still crazy athletic dude, and I just want to know, like, do you think he could translate over into the NFL?
It's the toughest question. It's where if you're a GM or an owner or a coach and somebody who's looking at the draft, it's probably causing you to pull your hair out. Because on one side, it's a guy that all he's ever done is win, right? I mean, I think the guy was undefeated through high school. Wow. Like just crazy, like 48-0 or something like in high school. And then obviously a ton of success at Oklahoma this last year. And playing a high level in the biggest games. But on the other side, you're talking about a guy who's 5'9". So I think I saw the stat the other day and they're giving Drew Brees credit for being 5'11". But so if you give Drew Brees credit for being 5'11", apparently there's only been one other quarterback under 5'11" to ever even win a single game in the NFL. And that was Doug Flutie.
Okay.
So that was it. So you're talking like the odds are stacked against you, right? Like, there's no quarterback with one guy in the whole history of the NFL has ever won a football game under the height of 5'11", right? So that doesn't seem to bode well for Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler Murray's a different animal, right? But, these guys get so set in their ways, talking about NFL owners and GMs, that a lot, they're put in this really tough position. We'd hate to pass on a guy who could be the best quarterback prospect coming out this year. But you also don't want to take that pick and miss wildly as well. That could set your program back if you take him with your first-round pick and he doesn't pan out. That's something that really puts you back. And we saw it with Cleveland for all those years when they didn't quite get the right guy, how long it took for them until they got Baker Mayfield now to kind of turn the corner a little bit. But personally, I think anytime you see a guy with Kyler Murray's skill set play football, your first thought is, he's just a runner. He doesn't throw well enough, right? That's always the downside to be a great dual threat quarterback. And I think I held a little bit of that opinion early on. I was really impressed with him in the college football playoff. I saw him make some throws. The types of plays that, a guy who can't throw doesn't make those plays, right? So like the knock on Jalen Hurts and things of that nature. In bigger games, he couldn't make the big throws. I think I've seen Kyler Murray make those throws. So I think he's talented. Where he stacks for me with the other quarterback guys coming out, I mean, I certainly wouldn't take him ahead of, Dwayne Haskins or Drew Lock. To me, those guys are guys that I would really bet on having a ton of success at the next level. Kind of more of the prototypical type quarterback. And Drew Lock's a little bit of a smaller guy as well, but a lot more mechanically sound playing the position, which I think is important. But yeah, once you get past those top two guys, then, do you like Jarrett Stidham better than you like, Kyler Murray? Can Kyler do some things with his feet that maybe offset what Stidham can do with his arm? And, Daniel Jones out of Duke, really highly thought of, but, playing at a little bit lower level, so you don't know how that's going to translate. And I don't know. I mean, I think this is one of those years where
you think Drew Lock is a first-round pick?
Yeah. To me, the top two quarterbacks are Dwayne Haskins and then Drew Lock.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you said that.
Yeah, those are my top two. I think it's Dwayne and I'd be very surprised if either of them got past, like the Giants and then the Jaguars pick at 6 and 7, right? So the first 5 teams, you could argue, don't need a quarterback, right? That are picking. So unless somebody trades up because they think Giants are going to take Dwayne and they really want him, you could see that happening. But I have a hard time believing. And now, so once again, it depends on who. Maybe you think Kyler Murray is the best one. So maybe you pick him in front of Dwayne, and maybe that bumps Drew Lock back or whatever. But I think in those top 10 picks, you're definitely going to have 2 QBs, and you might even have 3.
I think after the combine, I want to get you back on the show and just talk about where you think those quarterbacks are going to get drafted. But that'll be for another show for another day.
Yeah, well, that's interesting too that you mentioned the combine, because that's really where you're going to get a feel for what Kyler Murray can do a little bit. Right. He's going to blow everybody away because he's in shorts and a T-shirt. So when he runs a 40 or does a shuttle run, or obviously he's going to look like Usain Bolt compared to all the other quarterbacks, right? But on his pro day, or when he, at the combine, when he has to go through his pro day script and make a bunch of different throws, and you can really start to get a feel for what his accuracy looks like, what his arm strength looks like. That'll be interesting to see how he measures up against some of those other top guys.
Well, one of the last things I want to talk about with Kyler Murray, because he's been under pressure, but his athletic ability has got him away from that pressure to make plays. So I just want to know, when he's swamped in the pocket, do you think he can make accurate throws under pressure, or am I asking a little bit too much? Because I think it's like a lot of guys can't make accurate throws under pressure.
No, I mean, I think he definitely does that. I think that's what impressed me a lot in their playoff game this year, was his ability to do exactly that. And which really, if you're going to be that much of a running type quarterback and you're always going to be, escaping pressure and getting out on the edge, you better be able to throw it well on the run and off platform, right? That's where his just natural athletic ability serves him so well, right? Well, obviously, being a first-round baseball draft pick and a football guy, you look at what Pat Mahomes is doing. These guys who are just phenomenal athletes have an ability, and it's not trained or coached. It's just their natural way of being able to utilize their body and make difficult throws, and he's shown that potential. Like I said, whether I think he's better than Dwayne Haskins or Drew Lock does not mean in any way I don't think he's super talented. I think he's definitely right there. But that's going to be a big part of his game to the next level. And I think height isn't the issue. The issue is just his overall size, right? Because you saw some guys get to the NFL and take a couple of hits in a much more physical league where the defenders are just as fast as you are, and you've seen guys wear it down over time. So that would be my biggest question mark. Nothing to do with height. If he was 6'4", but, was skinny, I would have the same concern, right? So that'll be what's interesting to see how it all goes moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to see how well Sean could possibly run for office one day, because we are going to talk about a place or a program that's kind of near Sean and in his wheelhouse, because he actually trained one of the quarterbacks that's in this particular competition. So I'm just going to set the precedence with that. But still, out of everyone that I know that's on this show, he's closer to the Auburn program than a lot of other people. So, Sean, I have to ask you, because I saw an article, I can't remember if it was on Sports Illustrated, but there's been some chatter, especially in the internet article world, that Bo Nix could possibly start at quarterback for Auburn as a freshman, and he does look impressive, but at the same time, he is still a freshman. So I just want to get your opinions of what you think of that quarterback battle because obviously Malik Willis, who's been in the program for going on his third year, come this fall, he has the most experience. He's gone through off-season conditioning for about 2 or 3 years now. So come the time when they kick off the season, you would think he would be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, so it's super interesting this year, right? Because most situations when you have a guy who's been there for a couple of years and he's been the number 2 for that number of years, and then the number 1 guy, moves on, and, usually there's a clear kind of pass the baton to that other quarterback. What's been super strange is just how little Malik Willis has been used at Auburn the last couple of years. So for a guy who didn't redshirt and has been the backup since his true freshman year and then all of last year as well, he's had very few snaps, even in blowouts. And, I don't know if it's just the way Coach Malzahn likes to use his starting quarterback, or he was trying to chase statistics with Jarrett Stidham to help his draft prospect. And really last year it was the fact that they didn't play very well overall. They were in a lot of really close games. There wasn't a lot of blowout, garbage time opportunity, and then lost a few games that you thought they would have won. So just all those dynamics together, Malik Willis has played very, very little. And in the time he's been in, it's really just been to run the ball. He hasn't had an opportunity to throw the ball very much at all in the last 2 years. So instead of having like your rising junior who's been a backup with a lot of experience versus a true freshman coming out of high school, you could argue that neither of them have any experience. So that starts to kind of flatten, or take away some of the advantage that a guy like Malik Willis would normally have going into this competition. Bo Nix, super talented, of course, right? There's a reason he's a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, very successful. People make a big deal about the fact that he played for his dad, Patrick Nix, who also was an Auburn quarterback back in the day. So that coach's kid mentality everybody loves, right? A student of the game, a guy who really understands offenses and how to work through progressions and, probably more intelligent as a true freshman than most quarterbacks will be coming into their college program. There's a lot of things that work in Bo Nix's favor here moving forward. It's going to be interesting. I think the biggest thing for me is there's always going to be the hype on the new guy, right? So the 5-star coming into your program. And unfortunately for Auburn, those fans have seen it, right? Jeremy Johnson coming out was supposed to be all world, and Sean White, who did have some success at Auburn, but had come off, winning the Elite 11 quarterback competition and then maybe never really got to where he was supposed to be. But everybody loves the new guy and all the promise and the hope going forward. But obviously Auburn runs a little bit different style of offense. I think we saw it last year with Jarrett Stidham, as talented as Jarrett is, talking about being a probably top 2 or 3 draft pick in the NFL this year. Didn't really get comfortable, didn't really have a ton of success in that offense that seems to be more geared towards a versatile, more athletic quarterback. So those are things that would work in Malik Willis's favor. I think it's going to be an interesting competition. For Auburn, you're just in a great spot, right? You have a super talented junior guy who knows the playbook, knows the offense. The whole team rallies around him, all that leadership stuff. You have that guy in place already. And then you have this potentially really talented, mobile but more pocket passer type quarterback coming in. So either, Bo Nix is ready, and if he can beat out Malik Willis as a true freshman, then he's super talented, and Auburn should be excited about that. And if Malik Willis wins the job and, is able to bring a different kind of spark to that Auburn offense, you have Bo Nix in the wings there for another year or two, and then he takes over. So I think whatever way you look at it, Auburn's got to feel pretty good about the next 4 years at quarterback.
For me personally, I'm just going to put this out here. I'm rooting for Malik Willis just because I covered him in high school, and I've seen him I've seen what he can do, and I've also seen the off the field stuff. That guy is a quiet leader, but guys respect him.
Yeah.
And he will tell you what's up when you need to, and the kid is an extremely mature kid. So I feel like with those things, I feel like he'll be successful. What were you about to say, Sean?
No, so I was agreeing with that completely, and that's the funny thing about, you started the question with, I read an internet article, right, which are always my favorite, right?
Right.
Some guy's random opinion that he put on the internet, but you're right. I mean, I've seen ESPN reports, I've seen SB Nation and all that stuff, like they've written articles on that. But it goes back to what you said, is you've seen Malik Willis play.
I haven't seen Bo Nix play.
And the reality is nobody else really has.
Right.
So you're judging him on the 10 or 12 snaps he took over the last 2 years, right? Now, he's averaging like 11 yards a carry running zone read the last 2 years at Auburn. Now, it's very limited sample size. It's like 18 carries. But the guy's putting up a ton of yardage in those situations. He hasn't thrown because they just don't ask him to, but he's like 10 of 12 passing. Now, it's all little screen stuff, right? But it's not like, he doesn't turn the ball over. Like, there's nothing where you've seen that you really hold as a negative. You just haven't seen him do anything. I think a lot of these guys, especially the national people who look at the competition, don't even know who Malik Willis is.
Yeah.
Outside of a name on the depth chart. They've obviously never seen him at practice. They just assume, well, he's been there 2 years and hasn't really played. I guess he's not very good. Right. And then Bo Nix, they know because he's, big 5-star and, won a state championship the last 2 years at Alabama.
It's always weird. It's like they always know the highly recruited freshman, but they always Mark Rick said this one time. It's like, they always know about the highly recruited freshmen that you got, but you always forget about the sophomores and juniors that are on your team.
That's right, and that's just and like I said, that's why you can't really get too caught up in it. You know what I mean? Like, I read all those articles. Listen, I hope Bo Nix is super talented, right? I want Auburn to be in the best situation. What was frustrating last year was just not watching that team win.
Right.
I think there's numerous possibilities if Bo Nix is ready to play as a freshman and can actually, make an impact. I think that helps the team, along with having Malik there as well. So I think there's countless possibilities. You want to have two really good quarterbacks if you can. That's certainly better than having one guy and nothing behind him, right? This is, the same thing maybe UGA is looking at this year. Like, hopefully we're in good space, after Jake Fromm as we keep moving forward. But no, like, I want the team to be successful. I'd love to see that quarterback position be locked down. The other interesting one, we didn't even mention him, but Joey Gatewood, was another really highly rated prospect coming out of high school who redshirted last year and is now going into his sophomore year. So he's very much in that competition as well. If you start looking at comparisons, I think it's very easy to say, okay, Malik Willis has garnered all this comparison to Nick Marshall. And not only do they play similarly, but they almost look exactly alike too when they're in that number 14 jersey. And then you got Joey Gatewood, who Gus Malzahn himself is compared to like a Cam Newton type, right? Big, strong body guy, really powerful runner, and a very good high school quarterback in his own right. And then, Bo Nix can be Jarrett Stidham, right? You draw the comparisons there, and if any of those guys live up to their potential, Auburn's going to have quite a few possibilities there next year.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, too, if, let's say, Malik gets the starting job and keeps it. Let's just totally talk hypothetical for a second.
Yeah.
And but they play this Bo Nixon guy because he's shown that throughout the season and in summer camp that he deserves to have playing time.
Yeah.
Do you think they could it could possibly be a Justin Fields situation where you get this highly freshman kid in, you get him playing time, he knows that he can start, and he wants to enter into the transfer portal, what I like to call the college football free agency. Could you see that happening as what also?
I think no doubt. I mean, especially in this day and age that we're living in, and I don't mean that as a negative because I think it's a really, really good thing. But yeah, quarterbacks that have the ability to play, I think, should be able to find an opportunity to get on the field and play, right? And now the reality is you start looking at the years, right? So it will matter. So if Malik Willis wins the starting job, then Bo Nix will say, okay, do I redshirt my freshman year and then see what it looks like my sophomore year, right? Maybe Malik has a monster year like Dwayne Haskins did and goes to the draft early, right? Maybe he has that type of a year. Or maybe he's entrenched as a 2-year starter at Auburn. But then Bo Nix is saying, okay, well, I redshirt my freshman, I back up my sophomore, and then I still got 3 years of eligibility, and I can be a 3-year starter here at Auburn. So I don't know in that scenario if it's worth really leaving to go somewhere else. Now, if Joey Gatewood wins the job, he's only a year behind Joey. Now you're looking at only having maybe 1 year as a starter if you can't ever beat out Joey going forward. So that's a situation where maybe you want to look elsewhere. And that's the scenario of Malik or Joey starting. If Bo Nix comes in as a true freshman and wins the job, then I think it's very realistic to think that both Malik and or Joey Gatewood would be looking elsewhere as well to get an opportunity to get on the field. No different than, what Kelly Bryant did or what Brandon Wimbush has done or, name them, Tate Martell, Justin Fields, all those guys. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either. I think ideally you want to win the job and be the quarterback at the school that you originally went to at a high school. That's everybody. Nobody didn't want that scenario to happen. But if for whatever reason it doesn't, then I think you have to explore your other possibilities.
Another scenario I was thinking about throwing out there, but I don't really want to entertain this right now. I think we'd probably do it some other time because we got a long off season to do this. But I'm just like, if Gus Malzahn, they get rid of Gus Malzahn, then it's kind of like, I wonder who stays and who goes. But we could talk about that some other time. One of the things, too, that's kind of the topic of conversation when it comes to quarterbacks is Jared Goff. That there's been some speculation and some rumors that it would be better if the Rams got rid of his rookie contract and get a guy like Nick Foles to play quarterback for the Rams and hopefully try to mimic that success. But at the same time, there's still a lot of team dynamics going on because I felt like with Jared Goff, he was literally that just that game manager. When you needed him to make big throws, he made big throws. It wasn't like he was a Patrick Mahomes type of quarterback, but just because they had that explosive backfield, he could just hand it off to whoever. But yeah, I just want to know from you, what's your thoughts on this? Obviously, getting rid of him would be a risky business decision, but at the same time, keeping the continuity of the team could be better for the Rams long term.
Yeah, it's so tough, right? You obviously saw Jared Goff at his best play at a super high level with Sean McVay, right? And because of the creativity of McVay and what he can do offensively, he's more than likely going to bring out the best in a guy like Goff. And, but you also saw times through the year. I mean, Goff ended the season, I think, with like 1 touchdown pass and like 6 interceptions over 3 weeks, right? That was kind of how he finished out December, really playing poorly. Then I think obviously he played a lot better in the playoffs, right? But once again, he was relying a lot on the run game and that great defense. And then clearly in the Super Bowl, he looked, pretty poor again, right? So it's hard to fault a guy that has trouble playing against Bill Belichick and the Patriots defense. But long term, there's certainly some question marks there. The funny part of that is kind of, if you look at the NFL landscape, the biggest deal, kind of this window that a lot of teams have, is with that young quarterback who you're not paying a lot of money to yet, because like you mentioned, he's still on his rookie contract. So before you have to pay the guy a ton of money, you can spend a lot of money on your defense and your other pieces around him, and that's kind of the window that you have to be really successful early. And you've seen it with a lot of teams, right? You're seeing it with Kansas City right now because they're not paying Mahomes a lot of money. You're still seeing it with the Texans and Deshaun Watson because, that quarterback isn't eating up, $160 million like he's about to 2 years from now. And that's where the Rams are now, right? So maybe their window, and obviously you get to the Super Bowl, they took advantage of it, but now that's about to close because you have the prospect of having to pay Goff a lot of money. Is there another option out there? And we saw what Denver just did grabbing Joe Flacco. Nick Foles is still out there. He's already another Super Bowl MVP in his own right, just like Joe was. Are those the type of guys that if you plug them into McVay's offense, can they have at least the same amount of success as Goff? That'll be the interesting one. But the last piece on this is I think we write off quarterbacks like way too early.
Yeah.
Right? Like these guys are highly drafted for a reason. It wasn't because like you just took a chance on them. You watch this guy for 2 to 4 years in college play at a super high level, and he earned there. And then you've seen him at your camp. There's a reason he became your starter. Like, you saw this guy. He produced everywhere. And now a year or two in, you want to pull the plug and go somewhere else. And, I think the reality is, although there are guys like Pat Mahomes who just come out, as a true rookie, and Lamar Jackson, the success he had, and Baker Mayfield, those guys exist. But, man, a lot of guys, even look at like an Aaron Rodgers, guys that just, took 3, 4, 5 years to continue developing a backup role, and then were incredibly talented. A lot of guys are talking about Josh Rosen already, that maybe Arizona should be looking at drafting a QB and trading Rosen away. All right, it's like you only had him for a year, right? Like, give him an opportunity. You knew when you drafted him he was a high potential guy, but still a little bit raw. So put that work into him. That's the tough part. So that would be the thing with Goff is I think it's really hard to make a decision now on what he might be 3 years from now. And I think the GMs and owners that make that decision too hastily, are the guys that end up setting their program back by reaching for what they think is the better move. And then 4 or 5 years from now, they watch the guy they used to have a ton of success. Look at Drew Brees.
I feel like it's that Tom Brady type of syndrome when you see young quarterback go into the Super Bowl and lose, and you saw Tom Brady do it. Like I really believe like Brady's first 2 Super Bowls wasn't on him. It was they had a great defense. They had a good run. Like they had a good running game that got him to the Super Bowl. That Super Bowl in 2004, that was Brady's Super Bowl. And those Super Bowls that came after, those were Brady's Super Bowls that he won. I don't say by, but it's like that he had that will to win. But it's kind of like those first 2 was just like he was on the team and he was a starter, but it's like he wasn't the guy willing them to win. And I think
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right.
You get that syndrome with all these other quarterbacks that go into the Super Bowl, and then when they don't make it, you just it's time to move on.
And I think that's the reality is there's a lot of other ways. Like you can win Super Bowls in a lot of different ways, right? And you've seen teams like the Bears and obviously in '85 with McMahon, but even recently when they were there and lost to the Colts. With Rex Grossman at the helm, right? So, like, you don't have to have stellar quarterbacks to get all the way there. Baltimore Ravens winning with Trent Dilfer as their quarterback, right? You've seen this throughout the years that there's, maybe it's you win it because, Peyton Manning or Tom Brady's going to be the best player on the field. Or sometimes you win it with a Nick Foles or a Joe Flacco or whoever because you play really good defense and, the pieces around you make a lot of plays for you. I think Eli Manning is super talented, but, those Super Bowls, I think there was maybe a couple other quarterbacks you could have plugged in that could have won with that team. We're talking about a guy who won multiple Super Bowls. So I if the question is, can the Rams be successful with Jared Goff? I think without a doubt they can. And if you have a young coach like McVay and he now has his young quarterback in Goff, I mean, who's to say that isn't the Belichick Brady for 10 years down the road?
Right. That it's like they use this Super Bowl as as their benchmark for revenge.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, and just from a coach's and from a coach's perspective, I probably I know Jared Goff. If I'm Sean McVay, I know what he does well, what he doesn't do well. I know how to call plays to make him be his most successful. There's something about that comfort level, which I would think I would rather have that than maybe, the grass is always greener thought of, well, this guy out there looks better. And then you get him and you realize, you don't have that same relationship. But it'll be interesting to see what plays out there. But man, if they're trying to make a rash decision just because they didn't play well offensively in one game at the end of the year, I don't know if that's the right move.
I think it's trying to keep NFL headlines alive. But that's
there you go too, right? Especially when the Alliance of American Football is stealing all the headlines lately.
Man, did you see that one San Diego guy just get lit up?
It's so funny because, I was talking about, first of all, I was really intrigued with the Alliance. I think it's a good product. I think clearly there's enough talent on the field where it's good football, and there's just enough good quarterbacks combined with quarterbacks that you knew who they were, so it'd be interesting to see what they do, right, to make it really watchable. But, man, that was like the third play of the game, and the quarterback gets almost decapitated. And that's something that these hardcore NFL fans have been looking for 5 years now, right? Like, they can't believe all the quarterbacks are they have you can't touch them. And, every time you blow on Tom Brady, it's a penalty. And then here you see in the Alliance, quarterbacks are fair game again. I don't know, man. I think there's a big chance for that league to be successful, because football fans just crave watching more football. And if it's played at a high enough level, and it seems like this might be just good enough, I think it'd be really good. But I'm interested now going into the second weekend to see, if the product continues to be good, if the ratings continue to be high and things of that nature.
I think it will. I don't think it's like the XFL, but it's always external football leagues outside of the NFL seem to fail always. And I think the difference between this one and the XFL, this one kind of came in a little bit quieter, a little bit under the radar, and the play on the field spoke for itself.
It did. But then even outside of that, you got to give these guys credit. They were super smart about some of the things they did marketing-wise. Even just bringing starter back, right? All that nostalgia of starter uniforms, and now they're selling the old school starter jackets that we all wore in the late 80s, early 90s, right? Those things are coming back, and that's really, getting guys in that 14 to 22-year-old age range really kind of sucked back in to this league. And then they did a great job with having kind of hometown heroes play for their local teams, right? So I watched that Birmingham game the other night, and I'm sure 10,000 people were there just to watch Trent Richardson run the football.
Right.
Right? And then you got Aaron Murray as the quarterback, one of the quarterbacks here in Atlanta, and guys just want to watch Aaron Murray play football again, and Penn State fans are tuning in to see if Christian Hackenberg can figure it out and maybe revive his career, right? And Luis Perez is going to be a backup on the NFL roster next year, no doubt about it.
And then it's you have Spurrier in Orlando, and you also have Rick Neuheisel in Arizona. I don't think he has any Arizona ties, but Rick Neuheisel always seemed like a West Coast type of guy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they really set it up. They're giving it a shot, even with the they're on NBC. Their NFL Network is carrying their games. I mean, they did a really good job of putting together a good product and then putting it out there where it's really easy to be consumed. So you're talking about Saturday nights and Sunday nights, 8:00 in prime time, great time for people to be out at the sports bar on a Saturday night and there's football on TV. I mean, they're just super smart about what they're doing here, and they're giving it every chance to be successful.
Yeah, now like the NFL Network doesn't have to rip out their hair, that they actually can play games instead of figuring out what do we put on. I mean, because there's so much football life that you could put on as programming on the NFL Network for 4 to 5 months until football season starts.
That's right. And then they start making up ridiculous stories like, should the Rams move on from Jared Goff? Right? So,
that wasn't them. That was actually ESPN this morning.
I'm totally joking. I'm totally joking.
Okay, well, it's been great. Like I said, we could probably have this conversation for a long, long time, but I think people listening to this would be bored. Where can we reach you out on social media? Obviously, you're tearing it up with the Insta Story game. So, where can we reach you on social media, Sean?
Yeah, QB Coach McAvoy is like a handle. I don't even know what you call it on both Instagram and Twitter.
I think it is a handle.
Is it a handle? So so QB Coach McAvoy on both of those. But the Q&A is like I take the questions on Tuesday, and then I get all the best quarterback minds I can find in the area, in the country really, to answer them, and we post the answers on Thursday. But all the previous Q&A answers are kind of on my Instagram feed, so you can kind of go back over the last few weeks and hopefully bring a lot of insight, a lot of knowledge to quarterback development. So check that out.
Well, you did a A+ job today, Sean, so thanks for being on the show.
You got it, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Now, this is the point where we close out the show, and thanks for listening to us. I hope you guys had fun today on our Football Friday show. Always when you get the Chick-fil-A biscuits in me, that's when the real fun starts coming out. That's when that's when I have some of the most energy in the morning. So it was fun putting this show together for you. Because by the way, Chick-fil-A biscuits here at ATL Box Score are a tradition on Friday mornings, putting together the Football Friday show, because we like to come in here early and put this together, because not a lot of people, I don't think, are listening to podcasts, especially now that we're going into President's Day weekend. Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people listen to, well, I'm going to say not listen to podcasts, but I just don't think it's hard to get people to listen on a Friday when when they probably left work at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, went out to lunch and just didn't show back up to work. So usually we get it out around like the 5 o'clock mark. But I mean, we're trying to get a little bit out, trying to get the show out sooner, so that way people can listen. So yeah, thanks for listening. Especially thanks for listening to this part of the program. Just want to thank Sean McAvoy, Steve Choi, for always just being different, just a guy I can have a conversation with. Also too with Sean McAvoy, I always love having him on. He's one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite guys to talk about sports, and he's in an interesting position, just training quarterbacks. So he knows what's going on from a coaching standpoint. He also knows what's going on with what's going on with football. He's plugged into both aspects, which not a lot of guys are actually plugged in that much. They're either focused on coaching and they don't watch a lot of football, but it's like they know what's going on. But Sean goes above and beyond every time I have him on the show. I mean, I wish I could talk to him for hours, but we don't have that time. And speaking of that, I know you guys don't have a lot of time, so thank you for listening to this part of the show. But this is the part where we actually need your help. So if you could, wherever you see us on social, wherever you see the podcast, if you could hit that like button will actually help us out. Also, too, just to let you know, we are on every platform that offers podcasts. We're even on Spotify. So we're on Google Play, iTunes, the big one, Stitcher. I don't think a lot of people know what Stitcher is, but we're on that platform too. So that's how you can access the ATL Box Score podcast. So be sure on those platforms, if you could, the way you could help us out is to give us a 5-star review or whatever rating system they have there. If you could, if you feel like we deserve a 5-star review, then please hit that up. I mean, we're a podcast right now. That's a startup podcast, and we don't have a lot of the resources that Sports Talk Radio has, but we're a different conversation because we're more of a raw conversation in some ways. So be sure to help us out that way because we definitely want to grow. We definitely want to get better at this podcasting thing, and hopefully we've just given you an entertaining conversation to talk about. That's what we try to do with sports talk, and hopefully you guys have benefited from it, just listening in cars, traffic, or whatever you're doing on the go. Hopefully we've entertained you for that time period. So thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting the ATL Box Score podcast. And those are the ways that you can support us. Also, too, if you want to help us out financially with a financial donation, I have the links to that on the show description about my Patreon page, and we're gonna put some fun stuff on Patreon. Also, too, we're gonna get into some Atlanta United talk. So if you guys are big Atlanta United fans, that talk is just around the corner because, well, their season's starting up soon. So be sure to check back for us for some Atlanta United conversations that we're going to have in the near future. So thanks for checking us out. Thanks for listening, especially if you're a loyal listener. And be sure to hit up that comment section about just different opinions you have or different thoughts on the show, stuff you want to hear. The comment section is the best way to interact with this show. So thanks, guys. Thanks for checking us out as always. This has been the ATL Box Score podcast, and I'm Alex Berger. And this is episode 20. Let me just... no, we've done 28. We're at episode 29 is...